Hi, I'm Jen from Tea Leaves and Tweed, and welcome to another Matcha Basics video. This morning I'm going to be showing you how I make matcha lattes. So I'm going to make an iced matcha latte and a hot matcha latte using the method that I use for myself. So I am not a professional barista, but when I make lattes at home, this is how I make them. And I'm going to be making them using the Naoki Matcha Superior Ceremonial Grade Matcha, which is a very nice matcha. And it actually has a good flavor on its own, so you don't need to add any additional sugar if you don't want. So let's get started. So I'm going to start with my iced matcha latte. All I use to make my iced matcha latte is matcha, a little bit of water, ice, and some milk. Now I am using cow's milk from a local farm, but I often make my iced matcha lattes with alternative milks like almond milk or cashew milk or oat milk. The only thing I will say is that if you get completely unsweetened plant milks, milk has a little bit of natural sugar in it. So if you have a plant milk that is 100% completely unsweetened, you may want to add a little bit of sweetener, just a teaspoon or two, to make up for that. To balance the flavor of the matcha the way that the natural sugars in milk do. So I like to use maybe a teaspoon and a half of maple syrup when I make an almond milk latte with unsweetened almond milk. So I'm going to use 1 cup of milk. And then to make my matcha, I will take a rounded half teaspoon of my matcha powder. Doesn't have to be too precise. And I'm using this little bowl to mix my matcha together. And then I'm adding just a little bit of cold water, just an ounce or two. And I'm mixing that together. You're not really trying to get much of a froth because cold water doesn't always froth as well as hot water does. You just want to make sure that the matcha powder is nice and mixed in. And then you simply take your glass of ice, add your milk, and pour your matcha on top. And it gives this beautiful gradient effect when you serve it. But of course, before you drink it, you would want to give it a stir. So I like to make iced matcha lattes relatively frequently when the weather is warm. I find that I really like using kind of better quality matcha than you might in a matcha latte. The thing about matcha lattes is that I don't actually like my absolute finest matchas in a latte because the milk kind of softens some of the flavors. So I do like matcha that has a little bit of bitterness to it to cut through that creaminess and the tiny bit of natural sweetness. But I like using one that isn't very strong or unpleasant tasting so that I can make the latte without any additional sugar so I can actually taste the matcha. Although I do make a nice sweet matcha latte every once in a while too. If you want to add sugar to your matcha latte, for the iced matcha latte I find that maple syrup is one of my favorite sweeteners because it's liquid and it mixes in really easily. And what I would do is when I measured my milk in my jar, I would put the maple syrup in with the milk, put a top on it, and just shake it. And then you can do it the exact same way. So now, let's make a hot matcha latte. For my hot matcha latte, the first thing I want to do is heat up my milk. So I'm going to take a cup of milk, and put it in this large mug. And I'm gonna go heat this in the microwave. You could heat the milk on the stove if you wanted, but basically what you're trying to do is heat your milk to about 160 to 175 degrees Fahrenheit. That should make sure it's nice and hot to make your latte and to make sure it foams properly, but without scorching your milk, which doesn't taste very good. So now I've got my milk all nice and heated up, and I'm going to make my matcha shot. So once again, I'm going to use a rounded ½ teaspoon of matcha powder. And then I just have my kettle warm from making tea earlier in the day. So I'm just going to use about 2 ounces of hot water to make a nice shot of matcha. We'll whisk that up nicely. It actually helps to get a decent amount of froth on the hot matcha latte shot because it acts like the crema in an espresso. So if you actually wanted to try to do latte art, you would probably want to make sure you made a matcha shot with a decent amount of foam to act like your espresso crema. So now I've got my nice frothy matcha shot. I can pour it into my mug. And then I'm going to hit this milk with my electric milk frother. And you'll just want to be careful because this kind of makes a vortex and it expands. That's why I use such a big mug. So you just want to froth your milk until it has some foam on top. And then you just pour your milk into your latte. And what I like to do is bring a big spoon with me so that when it gets close to the top, I can just spoon some of the froth off the top onto the latte. So that you have a nice creamy matcha latte with a little froth on top. And it's not latte art, but it's kind of like a cloud. It kind of maybe looks like a little like a teapot. So there's my hot matcha latte. Now I find that I am even less likely to add sweetener to a hot matcha latte because something about heating up the milk just makes it taste sweeter to me. And I like the way you get a little extra strong matcha flavor from that foam that goes on top because you actually whisked your shot properly and it kind of floats to the top when you're mixing it with the milk. So it's very warming, it's very nice on a Monday morning when it's cold outside and you need a little extra to wake you up, especially since I don't drink coffee on a regular basis. So here we have our hot matcha latte and our iced matcha latte as part of our Matcha Basics series on Tea Leaves and Tweed. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this Matcha Basics video, and I hope I see you again sometime. If you have any suggestions for future Matcha Basics videos or any other tea videos that you'd like to see me make, please definitely drop a comment below because I'm kind of starting to run out of the things that I had originally planned on making for Matcha Basics. So let me know if there's anything else you'd like to see done in a video. Thanks. Bye.